Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
Heartbreak. Okay. A particular kind of heartbreak? Lots of kinds of heartbreak.
Romantic, but also loneliness.
Okay, that hits right to the core of all of us, right? What were you saying?
And then a similar spot.
Oh, okay. Any other themes?
What was that last one?
Any other themes? Anything else that we should include? He said, same for me.
Living in a world that tells you you need to want more, whereas Buddhism preaches no desire.
Right. We're living in a world that is filled with, you should have more, should have more, should have more. Mm-hmm. Okay. Versus no desire. Okay. Tara?
I have an ant population in my home, and I'm wondering how a Buddhist practitioner would deal with that.
As skillfully as possible. They're your ants, Terry, so please, as skillfully as you can do them. So we have an on-go period, a period of more intensive meditation happening this fall. And the text that people wanted to use is a text called The 8 Realizations of a Great Human Being. And I hope that you've had a chance to look at that. If you haven't, there's a whole sheet downstairs about how to connect with Mattermost, or you can talk to Ms. Linda Cho and Frischmeier back there, who knows all about this. And so, would you give Linda the microphone right now? So, before I start talking, I'd like her to say something about why we picked this text and what some of those 8 realizations are, so we can tie heartbreak and desire and everything else with the text we're looking at.
So I'm going to just try my hand at what the 8 realizations are.
Okay?
The first of the 8 realizations of great beings is impermanence, emptiness, non-self, and imperfection. The second is desire and craving cause suffering. The third is the insatiable mind. And the fourth can be seen from a don't as indolence or laziness, and from a do as effort or diligence.
Okay.
The other 4 those all have to do with becoming enlightened in a very broad sense. The others have to do with the Bodhisattva vow more directly. And I don't know if I have all the words correct, but I think they include generosity, contentment, connection or interbeing, and vow or aspiration are bigger purpose. Thank you. Walking meditation when those all popped in one.
Thank you. The 8th, according to the official, is birth and death are perilous. We should practice as though our life, where it says here, birth and death are like a blazing fire, plagued with endless afflictions and suffering. Vow to take on the infinite suffering for human beings and lead everyone to supreme joy. So, the 8 realizations of a great being, the great beings are talking about our essence, what's possible for us. It's not talking about our personalities. Our personalities are sometimes not so great. So it's not talking about the 8 great aspects of my personality. But it's talking about the eight aspects of wisdom, 8 aspects of our true heart. Not our better heart, not some other heart someplace else, but of our wisdom is right here. And the first one, of course, which is, Buddhism 101, if anyone ever asks you about what Buddhism is about, you can always say impermanence, right? Just impermanence, 101, it's Buddhism. Everything changes. There is nothing that does not change. It's just an observation. It's not a principle. It's not a philosophy. It's just an observation. Everything changes. Our minds change. Our weather changes. Our body changes. Our politics change. Our people surrounding us change. Our homes change. Our cars change. The birds change. The ants change. The floor changes. Everything changes. It's just an observation. So the first principle, anybody says, I don't understand Buddhism, you say, well, look around. That's what the Dharma is based on. Just change. Okay? He's changing all the time. And part of if you're working on certain things in Sanzen, you have to express them very vividly and completely and wholly. So that's part of what this is about. No big deal. Everything changes. Everything is fluid. Now, there is no evidence that anything doesn't, that things aren't changing. There is no evidence that things are permanent. Now that's the piece that's the way I like to look at this. I think, okay, everything's impermanent, everything changes, got that. But then I think, why would I think anything is permanent? Why would I think when I go back downstairs in a little while, my car will be out there and I'll push the right button and it will start up and it will do the thing I expect it always to do? I hope. It might not. We expect to go downstairs and there will be hot water for tea. I hope. Probably there will be, but it might not be. I hope that, I'll go home and Chosen will be there, and I hope that the Sangha will be happy and well-fed, and I hope that, the election goes in a way that I think is healthy, and I hope. It's all hope. It's all probability. And in the long run, if we look at it with a really big mind, mountains change, rivers change, bodies changes. So, so if I think, what is the evidence that something is not going to change? There isn't any. Just my hope. So, if we're in a relationship, of course, it's going to change. Hopefully it ripens and matures and, but sometimes the relationship will last for 30 years and it turns into dust. And sometimes it changes more unexpectedly. Sometimes it changes skillfully, sometimes it changes unskillfully, sometimes it changes, we change. That which we desired and loved, suddenly our heart changes and it's not longer there, or the other person changes. It changes, it changes, it changes, it changes. And so the implication of that is, anytime I can make contact with somebody, anytime I can have a relationship, even for a moment, it's a blessing. It's a blessing. I can connect now. I have this date, I have this time, I have this day. This day. And so then it changes from, it's definitely going to end in where either Chosen and I will die first. We've been together for 40 years. And of course, one of us will. Rather than, there's this big cataclysm coming up. There's this day, there's this day, there's this day. We went square dancing yesterday. We've been square dancing for many years. And with square dancing, you only can dance the dance you're dancing. You can't dance a previous or future dance. So, get to dance this dance, and hopefully you have some skill and keep up with the music and enjoy it, but it's a hope. The second realization is that the more we want things to be the way we want them to be, the more we want them to be the way I think they should be, the more we suffer. Because frankly, in my experience, reality doesn't agree with us much of the time. You know? I have in my mind, I want Kodo to act just the way I'd like her to act. She never does. Never does. She's always acting like herself. Doesn't make any difference what I think. Or my wife, or any of you. That the more we want to put people in boxes, the more we want them to say, okay, I want you to act the way I think you should act, and I want you to act that way today, and today, and today, and today, and today. I want the world to act the way I think it should act. I want people to be sane and reasonable, and they're not sane and they're not reasonable. And I want them to be sane and reasonable, and they're not sane and they're not reasonable. The more that our expectations are put on things, the more we suffer. Because we're not responding to how things are. We're responding to our picture of how they should be. And that's the desire, the craving that leads to suffering. I want things to be the way I want them to be. And I'm going to respond to them as if they should be the way I think they should be, even though they may be totally different. This particular thing, it says, greed and craving are suffering. But what that means is, my picture of how it should be, I'm going to fight to the death to make the reality match my picture. And we lose. We get into a big fight with reality and we lose. Reality never does. When we can actually flip it around and say, I want what's happening. I want to be in contact with the way things are so I can respond to it skillfully. Then suddenly our suffering is diminished enormously. I want to be able to meet this crazy situation right now with calmness, clarity, equanimity, so that I can be as skillful as possible. And suddenly, the mind that is constantly saying, it should be the way I think it should be the way I think it should be. That was really good. It should be more of that, more of that. That was really good. I want more of that. Suffering, suffering, suffering. And this is about not suffering. It's about living a skillful life. It's about having a life of love and kindness. It's not about a life of righteousness and anger. Which is, unfortunately, the way so many people live their lives. The fifth of the realizations has to do with ignorance. That we are paying attention not to the way things are, but to how our mind keeps thinking they should be. We're not paying attention to how we are. My heart is broken. I'm sad. That's the way it is. But the story we have on top of it causes a lot of suffering. Of course, we're human beings. We're going to feel heartbreak. We're going to feel sadness. Of course. It's part of being human. There's one of my friends, James Ford, wrote a book called "Your Heart Will Surely Break," something like that. And our hearts break when we finally begin to realize reality will never, ever agree with me. I have to agree with it. And we let go of that hope. And our self-centered heart breaks. But a larger heart opens. A larger heart opens. To be human, of course, means to feel deeply, to be able to experience all that is human. What's human? Everybody here is a mature person. You've been around. We feel up and we feel down, we feel in and we feel out, and we feel heaven and we feel hell, and we feel hurt and we feel pleasure and we feel bliss and we feel... It's all impermanent though. So we get stuck when we're being truly human and we keep thinking, oh, it feels really good. I want to make sure it keeps feeling really good all the time. It doesn't. Being human means some days are up and some days are not up. Some days we're full of life and joy, and some days we're small and hard, and some days we're indifferent, and some days we've got full of energy and able to get lots of accomplished. Other days we're really indolent. They're waiting for you, Kodo. That's life. So the first of the truth is impermanent, is we're able and willing to feel all that makes us human. All that makes us human, knowing that it's passing through. Knowing that it's passing through. And we learn from every heartbreak, and we learn from every new love, and we learn from every success, and we learn from every failure. And in this way, every day is a good day. Because there's something to be learned, something about being human, something about our capacity is enlarged. What's been on my mind this last week, I was thinking of two things. One, pickles, and the other was Coca-Cola. So let's deal with pickles first. And what was on my mind about pickles is there are people who are afraid of pickles. Not unusual. People are afraid, usually the big pickles, not the little pickles, but they're afraid of pickles. But we're afraid of lots of things. So what are some other things that people are afraid of? Or rather, Spiders, arachnophobia, yeah. Now let me rephrase that. There are things that trigger a fear reaction in people. So I'm shifting it from there's an arachnophobia, there's a spider out there, a 24 four-fanged, black spider. That's the fearful object from our reaction to the spider. So what are some things that cause our reactions of fear? Uncertainty. Death, whatever that is. Failure. Public speaking. In most surveys, the number one fear that most people have is having to stand up in front of a bunch of people and start talking. And if you haven't done it 1,000 times, it can be anxiety producing. Conflict.
Being surprised by the unknown.
Being surprised. That's one of the joys of life, is being surprised. Yeah. Let's just pick one of these, okay? Why might conflict be an object of fear or create a fear reaction?
Didn't end well in the past.
It didn't. So we're going to use the microphone or not? Yeah, I'm sorry. Tom has a fear of public speaking and doesn't want his microphone. But you're online. The whole world is hearing you now, Tom.
What was the question again?
The whole world is hearing you now. Why is conflict? Why can conflict induce fear?
I was thinking, it's just that maybe in many people it's a learned response, that there was a conflict in the past, there was some either actual harm or there was emotional harm, and we have a memory of that. So it's kind of programming. And then we want to avoid the reoccurrence of some imagined future where we get hurt again.
Okay. See if I can simplify. So we're afraid. The idea of conflict connects often with a memory of a previous experience, of something we felt in the middle of that experience, which we didn't like.
Right. Or it may not be a memory, it may be just an imagination. It may just
Could be
us making up a story.
Okay.
If I say the wrong thing to Hogan, then he won't bring me chocolate chip cookies next Sunday, I promise.
Okay, I'll happily bring you chocolate chip cookies next Sunday. Okay. So, arachnophobia, spiders. Why would spiders induce a fear response? That's Kevin back here.
I think it can cause a sense of disgust and physical pain.
Okay, so you see this multi-legged object, and then what happens inside when you see the multi-legged object? That's what Tom and I were talking about.
Just a feeling of overwhelm that something bad will happen.
Sense of overwhelm, something bad will happen. Okay. What else? Let's dissect this a little bit more. Somebody else, or you want to carry it. So a fear object, what is the genesis? What's the impulse? What's the what's the fear?
It's going to bite me.
It's going to bite you. And if the microphone's be raced to you, Terry, as fast as he can. Yes.
That spider will bite me.
And then what?
I'll die, or I'll have to go to the hospital or something.
And then what?
And then someone will be saying the eulogy.
Then what?
And I'll be looking down at them and thinking I'm better off.
All right. All from one spider. That's pretty impressive. Why do things cause us fear? That's
They're going to hurt.
What does that mean? Hurt. It means you don't want to feel something. What don't you want to feel?
I don't want to feel it. I don't want to feel the unknown. I don't want to feel that I might lose my heart or my heart's going to stop. I'm afraid it will in my life. I don't want that to happen.
There's a whole bunch of things right there. So I don't want to feel the unknown. How many people have felt something they didn't know they were going to feel? I guarantee that's going to be part of your life. Guarantee that you're going to feel something you didn't know you were going to feel. Okay? So don't let him go away. Keep on Katsu still. All right. So that's one. That's a normal thing. What else?
If the spider bites me, my flesh will fall apart and I'll lose my arm.
Okay. And again, what's the problem there?
The problem is if I don't have two arms, I can't live the life I live.
And the problem there?
That how will I be able to do what I'm used to be doing in the ways I've been used to doing? I want to do it a different way.
And the problem there?
That I'm living in the past instead of without the arm.
There's an interesting study, there's been replicated many times, of people who say, they made a list of 84 things that people said, I would rather be dead than experience that. And yet, if you interview the people, people who had those 84 things, they all said, oh, I'm so glad I'm not dead. I'm so glad I'm alive and got this. That our fear of what it might be like is much greater than the reality of what it is. It's been shown over and over again. So it's interesting, we have a fear that, oh yeah, something's going to happen, and I'm going to have to experience this, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and I won't be able to live the life I think I should live. If we take any fear, we have a fear of climate change, we have a fear of elections, we have a fear of arachnoids, we have a fear of snakes, we have a fear of car wreck, we have a fear of the future. And we begin examining, what am I afraid of? What am I really afraid of? It becomes, I think, a very interesting investigation. I mean, the way that we are made is we're going to get old, get sick, and die. 101 normal. absolutely normal. The way things are made is something comes together and over time it's going to fall apart. No exceptions. Sequoia trees, mountains, MGs. I mean, every computer we've ever built. That's just normal. That's just the way it is. Right? But then the mind comes in and says, no, it shouldn't be that way, it shouldn't be that way, it shouldn't be that way. And we start generating a story. Now, the reason some people, perhaps not you people, but not me, are afraid of pickles is they see a pickle and they think, oh, I'm allergic to it. Oh, it's going to cause me terrible digestive, it might have a fungus on it. Those may be true. But the link is our thoughts. Whenever we see something that bounces up into our imagination of how it should be, could be, would be, the mind starts spinning whatever its habitual pattern is. The world is made up of thought. The world is made up of thought. Now, you say you've got this body experience here, we've got the sensations of our body, but our interpretation of all of our sensations is thought. Is thought. Is belief, is stories, is narrative. The microphone is being raced to you as fast as possible. Look at that.
Sometimes the thought protects us, right?
Sure. Thought's great. I'm glad we can think. So if we are reading a story, and we're in the middle of the story, and we get caught up in it, and the heroine is, in a perilous condition, situation, and our heart is beating, and we're sweating, or we're watching a movie, and suddenly we realize it's just a movie, it's just a story. It's not the way things are, it's a story. When we are realizing, we have made up this enormous story. Great, I love stories. But seeing the confabulation of the mind as a story, as a narrative that we have put together, changes our relationship to it. In the classic text, they say to wake up to the dreamlike nature of reality. You can say life is a dream because things are just constantly changing and everything's flowing through, and whatever you had that was so real for lunch yesterday is gone, and you can't, in a couple of days you won't even be able to remember it, and all those decades for some of us, years for others, all those decades, gone, completely gone. Just, I'm 75, where did the 7 decades of life? I have, maybe a story from when I was 62, and a memory from when I was 59 and a half, and a dream. So to wake up to the dreamlike nature of reality is to realize, to wake up to the story-like nature. We make up stories. Good stories, bad stories, we make up dramas, we make up exciting, but it doesn't mean we have to say, I don't want to live and enjoy the story, but it's a story. Story. My mind made this up. I was thinking about Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, as far as I'm concerned, is a ultra sweet, connected to diabetes, connected to weight gain, connected to dental caries. But the story about it is it's bubbly and bright and connected with refreshment and happiness. And billions of dollars have been spent to make that story. So that when we think of Coca-Cola, we don't think of dental tooth decay. We don't think of I'll put on a lot of unnecessary weight. We don't think of that. We think Coca-Cola, maybe it's whatever. The stories are so compelling. So again, back to our text here. The text basically says everything's impermanent. Every story we make up is an impermanent story. It's good for a while, you enjoy a story, you put it down, and you go on to the next one. And the desire is, I want to keep this story, I want to keep this story, I want to keep this narrative. But it keeps changing. The parents that we thought we grew up with are not those parents. They're long gone. Whatever we think is happening with the federal deficit is just a story. Nobody knows what's happening with the federal deficit. Nobody can count that high. You know, Russia just fined Google more money than there is in the entire world. I mean, it's just a story. Ms. Tegan, here it comes. Go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to address something that you said earlier.
Okay, I've been chattering away, so there's a whole lot of...
Yeah, it was the part about, I've heard you say it a lot of times, it's sort of like, it's unkind to expect other people to be a certain way or to want certain things from other people, and like doing that is a disservice to people, sort of like, oh, I want this person to be this way and therefore I'm suffering. But I feel like we live in a world of relationships, like you always say too, and the relative world where if someone is hurting us in some way and tell them it can change, and like that is a real thing, and I think it's really important. And you can say it's just a story, but like we do live in the relative world. And like people, like I've had the experience of like friendships where I'm like, okay, what you're doing is hurting me, or like, can you show up for me in this way? And then they do, and it's like, holy shit, like that's possible. And I don't think it's causing suffering for either person. I think
Wonderful.
It's actually a beautiful gift. So I'm just wondering if you're aware of that.
Okay, so let me try to add a little texture to this. If we have somebody, we probably have all met them in some religious circles, who is very righteous, who knows how everybody should behave. Everybody should behave, the way I think they should behave. And they are going around judging everybody because they don't behave the way I think they should behave. They don't look right, their hair is too long, their gender is wrong, they're wrong politics, they're not believing in this, they're not fit. And they're so righteous that everybody around them is wrong because they're right. I don't know about you guys, but I've certainly met people like that. That's not particularly helpful. Let's look at the other side. I wish, in my fantasy, that people were sane and reasonable and kind and open-hearted and considerate of others and helpful and generous and loyal and brave and true. And I took the Boy Scout motto many, many, many years. But the world doesn't act like that, as far as I can see. So if I go around thinking the world should act the way I think it should act, then I'm suffering all the time because people are crazy. Sometimes.
Isn't that a story?
That's a story too, yes. It's all a story.
I just can't tell if you're understanding what I'm saying.
So I'm trying to flip it in different ways. I'm flipping it from I'm right and they are wrong, or they are crazy and I am wrong. They are right. So our job, from my vantage point, is it's a relationship that we have to respond. And we have to respond as accurately and kindly and directly as we can to what's really in our life. Now, if I tell Chosen to change and say, I think you should do something different, I don't like that, it doesn't go very far. Really? Sorry. Having been in a relationship for 40 years, it's not so easy to say to your child, you better show up on time. People tend to not do that.
I'm sorry if that's been your experience.
Yes, well, I hope that you have the opposite experience.
I actually do, and
Wonderful.
Yeah.
May you tell everybody how they can be of service, and may they all listen to you very carefully. But my experience is that people will do what they're going to do. And if sometimes we have somebody who's really considerate and responsive, they'll be considerate and responsive. And people who are not considerate and responsive, you can talk all day long, and they're not. On the other hand, we can model a way of being responsible, of being kind, of being present, of being the people that we want everyone else to be. We model that, and then, believe it or not, more people respond to that. That's my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to corroborate your experience, that I experienced the same thing, especially in close friendships, and I appreciate it when I experience being called on stuff that is hurting someone that I care about. And I think yesterday I was talking to someone about Buddhism who is new to it, and they expressed what I think is a related concern about, like, how then do we encounter injustice? Do we encounter things that are like, there's broad consensus that we would like it to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we view our own agency to change things? Because we do have agency to change things. And I think the small example of between friends is, it's just a microcosm of they're sort of the same problem, if you want to frame it that way, that if we can figure out how to address discrepancies between what we want between us and people we're close to, it's related to how we can respond to large-scale injustices and how we go about viewing our own agency in the world. So yeah, I just want to affirm that I feel the same tension there, because I do want to be called on my stuff if I'm doing something that hurts someone else, and I also... what's the relationship between agency and acceptance?
Okay, these are big questions, these are great questions. I encourage everybody to really investigate them directly yourself. The number one agency we have is integrity. We have the possibility of having integrity. Okay, and so to know who you are, to begin to know, I'm composed of all kinds of ups and downs and ins and outs. I'm composed of lots of things, and I have some integrity with the multiplicity of my own being. And out of that integrity, I will respond to the world in the most skillful way I can, with loving kindness, with directness, that integrity. Now, whether the world wants to change according to me, it has nothing to do with me. I may want my partner to change all kinds of wonderful ways. I may tell her as skillfully as I possibly can. It can be incredibly heartfelt, and she will do what she's going to do. She's a very intelligent, responsive person, so it may have a difference. So integrity, personal integrity, is vital. Secondly, we have to have good boundaries. On one hand, everything that we see, hear, smell, and taste and touch is processed right here. There is no outer world. It's all processed right here. A tree falls in the forest, it doesn't make a sound. There is no tree, there is no forest until it's processed right here, until the auditory stimuli or the neuroenergetic stimuli is actually processed here. My brain is what configures you. All of you is what configures each of us. So there's that sense of total personal responsibility. We are the ones who actually see the world and have integrity with that. And appropriate boundaries is also really an essential part. But acceptance is also part of the picture. It's not up to us, it's way beyond us. That's why we take refuge in that which is bigger. We take refuge in nature, for example. Nature is the one who produced crazy human beings, not crazy human beings. So we have to have all these different levels of truth are simultaneously and adaptably important. That's how I look at it. Okay, Joe, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. I don't think there's any contradiction between the kind of acceptance that the Dharma teaches and working as an activist. I mean,
Of course not.
it's not the same acceptance. So before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. could do what he did, he had to accept that things were, in fact, the way they were. Otherwise, he'd be incompetent. He would not be able to do what he did. To the
Exactly.
extent that you accept the way things are, then you can maybe have an influence. By the way, he didn't end racism. By the way. So there's also this persistence of certain things. And we move against them, and there's absolutely no contradiction between the two.
Thank you,
In
Jim.
my view. My apologies if I sound impatient.
No, I think that he had integrity. That's what I was saying about integrity. We have to be able to respond to our life and step forward in the way we need to respond. And Mahatma Gandhi did not end violence. Mahatma Gandhi, I was using a different example.
Yeah, this has been a point of concern, contention, unsurety for myself too. I think it does have a pejorative name, perhaps, quote unquote, nice Buddhism.
I missed the name.
Nice Buddhism.
Nice Buddhism.
But yeah, so what's coming up for me is that sometimes that definitely it really is true, like personalities are complex structures, and anything one says or expresses, words, actions, etc., is just one outward input on that complex personality structure. And I'm very averse from doing this, if we never are explicit, like verbal inputs on the structure, if we don't say things, there isn't that kind of a feedback input. And it's really hard to know when the right time is to say something, but sometimes personality can be liminal, like rupturing, and a land will just word would really crack something. And I've definitely had some experience of just somebody says something direct, and yes, it hurts, and maybe I was really self-righteous, etc. Left maybe really sonzer, like, oh, god damn, and it's like, went back to my Zabuton, squirmed, and yeah, I really need to hear that.
Okay. Thank you, David. Who else would like to say something? I'm sorry, my glasses off, I can't see. Yeah. Yes, Cho on.
I find this topic of acceptance so fascinating. And I also find that when I confuse acceptance with agreeing or a value judgment with a positive flavor, it gets very difficult.
Absolutely.
When I remember that acceptance is, this is what is, then I find myself able to respond. Whether it's something I agree with, don't agree with, am judging, am not judging, and I'm more direct about how I'm responding to it. And my experience is it's better received by the person to whom I'm responding. But when I get tangled in knots is when I confuse it with, oh, I'm supposed to agree with this. Because acceptance is not about that.
Thank you.
You can have a violent difference of opinion, internal violent, and be accepting it is what it is.
Thank you. Who here knows the first of the 12 steps? Who can say that for me? Who can say the first of the 12 steps? Jonathan, you're not paying attention. This is so. What's the first of the 12 steps?
Admitting we were powerless over alcohol and our lives have become unmanageable.
So there's a power that is bigger than us. Without that acknowledgement, without acknowledging the reality of, oh yes, I got this problem, and it's bigger than me, and it's powerless, we can't work on it. That's the first step of reality is, here's the way things are. I can now work on it. Thank you. Anybody else? Please, Jonathan. We'll give it to Tom, then Paula.
I'm not exactly sure. I wanted to take this in one direction. I'm going to take it in a different one. And that's
Well, that sounds like confusion to me.
Well, I'll make a decision in my own head. Just that I want to just kind of ask you to bring it back to practice and also tie it in with this with heartbreak, because I think one of the reasons on an intellectual level, acceptance is easy. Like, oh yeah, it's just a narrative. I'm going to accept that narrative.
Intellectually very easy.
Like heartbreak or falling out, having to fall out with a friend or feeling disrespected or something like that. And we all have our things. That has a resilience that can be very powerful, and I guess not to go all AA, but some people do find it, certain practices are helpful. Saying the surrender, reminding yourselves anyway, I guess I want to bring it back to practicing with that experientially. It just always seems harder. It's easier, this stuff is easier said than done. And so I guess the answer for myself is it always has to come back to, a lot of this,
Thank you, Tom. Paula.
I feel like I'm a little off topic now, because
we're just going wild here, so jump in.
How do you listen to someone you don't like? How do you listen, with an open heart to somebody you disagree with? And I'm curious about how to. I want to be a better listener, and that is definitely my weak spot. And a lot of it is that I look at somebody and I already know what they're going to say, and so I'm like, or I look at somebody and I'm like, I don't like you, so. And I just can't open my ears to people. Do you have any advice?
Sure, let me kind of wrap it all up here and bring it around. And let me talk a little bit about love, loving kindness. To have love means we have to accept. We can't love something that we don't accept. So if we are talking about our body, and we don't accept that the body is shaped the way it is, it's got the weaknesses it's got the warts it's got, we can't really practice loving kindness right here. To practice loving kindness means to practice acceptance. This is the way it is, right now. Not the way it was, not the way it might be, but right here. And right here, with that kind of acceptance, we can practice loving kindness. Now, if we're involved with someone and we actually love them, then we want the best for them. It's my experience. I want the very best for all of you. I want the very best for Chosen. I want the very best. But I don't know what that is. I think if you live by the precepts, you definitely have a lot less suffering. I think that's true. And I try to tell people that all the time. But I don't know what the best is for people. So part of my experience of love is a kind of faith that people in their own crazy way, have an aspiration in their own hearts and will do their best to make the best decisions. From my vantage point, it may be crazy, but everybody always is doing the very best they can do. And to accept that people are doing the very best they can do, and I don't understand it, but I have respect and appreciation and acceptance and love, even though from my small view, it's, So that's, to me, one of the foundations of loving kindness. And if we're listening to people we don't like, the first place, I think, is, do I really want to know what these people are thinking? Do I really want to know what somebody is thinking? If I don't want to know what they're thinking, why do I even listen to them? But if I say, okay, I'd like to know what you're really thinking, it works wonderfully if you're involved with an angry child or somebody who's really angry at you. You think to yourself, do I really want to know what they're thinking and feeling? Or do I want them just to agree with me? And if you really want to know what people are thinking and feeling, then you can make your mind open and you say, oh, I'm curious. How in the world can you think that? That's interesting. Let me hear. Let me see. Because I know that person in their own mind, given all their history, given what's going on with them, given their situation, is trying to do the best they can do in their own light. So that's the way I always try to do that. Just say, okay, I really don't know, but I'm really curious. And I have all sorts of great friends around Columbia County who carry lots of rifles and things because I'm just curious, I'm interested. Esme.
I wanted to speak to, this has to do with listening, but it also has to do with communicating and voicing your needs in situations of conflict. Sometimes when you articulate your needs, when you articulate what you need to ask of someone in order for your dignity and your humanity to be respected in a situation, it is possible to do that from an intention of seeing the Bodhisattva heart in them.
Of course.
And this is how I deal with street harassment, is I actually try to draw out in the person who is veering towards violence towards me, what is in your heart that is moving? Okay? But also, a part of acceptance, and I will say this as a survivor of intimate partner abuse, is that sometimes you need to accept that I need to leave the situation. And it is in the leaving the situation, and it is in taking the action to protect yourself, that you can then
of course
have love for that person. If you do not voice your needs and accept this is just what the situation is, and just let it happen, and let it happen, and let it happen, your capacity for love disappears.
Absolutely. Because you're not responding. So acceptance has got to have response to it. Response means boundaries. And universal love means some people should be loved from 3,000 miles away. And some people can be loved in your own house. But universal love does not mean you invite everybody home with you. So yes, I agree with all that. That's nonviolent communication in the essence. So great. Thank you. Thank you all very much for putting up with all this kind of interesting. I always find it interesting to see what people are thinking and how it's unfolding. And my hope, of course, is that each person here looks into your own heart, looks into your own mind, finds liberation, is able to act with integrity, finds a core of stability and clarity that enables you to be loving and kind and connecting with everybody else. Thank you all for being here this evening. Thanks online. Sorry I didn't get around to talking to anybody there, but I noticed that you are here. And we end with the 4 Bodhisattva vows, which Jonathan's about ready to do. And again, the 4 Bodhisattva vows, page 5, is what, in a way, sums up practice. I vow to be of service, to help everyone. I vow to learn what I do not yet learn. No, I vow to investigate and look into my own weaknesses and inadequacies. And I vow to be an exemplar of my highest and most honorable dignity, purpose, person. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast. And thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.